Alright, it's been a while since I made a video. I haven't been playing much the past 6 months or so. Recently started playing again, and someone asked me the other day about what sort of wind calculation I use. A long time ago I made a wind calculator that was accurate, but it it relied on the player to make some decisions that, if you're not used to making those decisions or those estimations, then the calculator wouldn't work very well. So I decided to improve it here and make it a bit easier to use, so you don't really have to estimate anything other than the wind direction using a clock. So how does this work? So we'll test it. We'll actually play with it a bit and test it and see what we think. So this is a tailwind section. This is the headwind section. Obviously, they're labeled properly. So all you have to do is make sure you put the wind. If you have a headwind, make sure and put it in the headwind section. And if you have a tailwind, make sure and put it in the tailwind section. That's something that it's a bit the only way you'll really go wrong, I think. So how does this work? So what do we need to know? What sort of input do we have to do here to make this work? So we need to know the wind direction. So what do we put in for wind direction? So let's say we have a wind that's pointed, we have a tailwind that's pointed at about 2 o'clock. We just type in 2. Let's say it was between 2 and 3, so right in this direction, we'd put 2.5. It's pretty simple. If it's between 12 and 1, you type in 12.5. Pretty easy. And the same goes for a headwind, the direction. Let's say we have one coming at 7 o'clock. We just type in 7. If it's between 7 and 8 right here, you type in 7.5. And so on. Now, if you get one that's sort of in between, if you think it's pointed like, say, not quite 8, but not quite 7.5, that gets a little bit confusing, because what I would do is I would go with 8, even though it's not 8. We'll say we got a wind speed of 10 miles an hour and a distance of 150 yards with no elevation. So this says to play at 152.9, so 153 yards if it were 8 o'clock. Now type in 7.5. So remember this number, 153, 155. So it's pretty simple to take 155.5 minus 153, and then you just divide this by 2 and add that to the 8 o'clock number. So plus 153. So you played about 154 in that case. So all you're doing is taking the in-between. I didn't add that in the calculator because it just takes... the calculation would take forever to write. The formula would take forever to write. So doing the in-betweens is pretty easy. You're just taking... Again, if it was pointed, we'll say right here, and not quite 7.5, not quite 8, you take 8, and then 7.5, and all we're doing is finding the between. So there's a 2.5 yard difference, so in between that is obviously half, so 2.5 divided by 2, and we just add that to the 8, if that makes sense. Hopefully that's not too confusing. And that's all you need to know. All you need to know is the wind direction on the clock, the wind speed, the distance, how many. If it's, say it's 12 feet up, obviously that's going to change it. If it's 12 feet down, that's also going to change it as well. So there, make sure that's actually centered there. Yeah, so that's it. That's pretty much how you use it. So let's actually test this and see what happens here. It's a good course to test it on, I guess. Let's do Congressional. Actually, some of the holes play a little funny at Congressional on the back 9. I guess that's fine. We'll play the front and see what happens here. Alright. I might lay off just a little bit and hit the 3-wood or something, just to make this a bit more of an interesting shot as opposed to like a really short wedge or something. I don't really want to be in the rough though. It's alright, we'll just kick it out in the fairway and hit it. So I'm just going to punt it out here somewhere and... or try to, rather. Let's try that again. Let's wedge it out so I don't sit here all day trying to get it at the rough. There. So we'll assume we ended up in this spot here. So pretty easy. It's a tailwind, obviously. The direction is essentially 12 o'clock. I mean, if you have trouble telling what the exact direction is, you can kind of take this, you know, and sort of line it up and something like that. You know, something I could do, I guess, is draw like a straight line straight up here, so it'd be easier to line it up with the windsock, but it's close enough anyway. That's going to be 12 o'clock, so the direction is 12. The wind strength, we always use the average, so it's 11. It's between 10 and 12, would be 11. Our distance is 141, and the elevation is up 7. And let's see what we get for a... So it says to play at 137 and a half. Now this hole tends to play a little bit on the longer side for me, so I'm going to round that up to 138. So 138. So somewhere around, just around 95% should do it. We missed the ding, but we're more concerned with the distance than the line. And you can see that was on a ding. That would have been quite nice. It would have been absolutely perfect. So I'm not worried about the putting. We're here to demonstrate the calculator and how to use it. Now, I will say one thing, a bit of a disclaimer. Tailwinds are a lot more inconsistent than headwinds. So you're gonna, you're gonna end up, especially with an 8-iron specifically, on certain holes. So tailwinds, you're gonna have a tailwind sometimes and be like, oh, I did exactly what the calculator said. I hit it a perfect percentage. I dinged it, and I'm 4 yards short. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's just the way the game is. It's got nothing to do with what you did wrong. It's got nothing to do with the calculator. It's just the variance built in the game. And there's nothing you can do. So we got another tailwind. This one, here's a good one, because it's not quite 11.5, and it's not quite 12. So let's put in the parameters here. So it's a 10 wind. The distance is 231, and it's up 20. So that says 228.8. So what if we do 11.5? It's 229.7. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this is right around 229. Right around 212. It's really not much difference. It's about a yard difference. So this is probably right around 229, I would say. So let's see if we can get this reasonably close. And again, tailwinds are not the most reliable thing in the world. Neither is my ding ability, but... And it's going to be bad pretty much no matter what. Let's see if we... Again, distance-wise, it would have been right on the money. I mean, you have to know how far the clubs go at different spin settings to get these yardages. But you can see, again, if we ding that, we're right on the hole. So I guess technically you could say this in the hand, this with something like this in the hands of someone who used an auto dinger would be quite useful. Not advocating people try that, but I'm just saying. It would be kind of lethal, I think, especially if they had like a a wind aim, any sort of like reasonable wind aim as well, which I usually don't have. But we'll try one more. This will be sort of a weird one. Can ding drives, but not approaches. So this is a good sort of wind. These are the hardest wind directions to guess, and this is the improvement of the calculator. This keeps you from guessing. Once you get this sort of centered, I guess you'd never have to move it again. Like, you know, if you got this close. So let's say that is about, what is that? Very close to 4 or 4.5, maybe even in between. So this one we've got a headwind this time. So the direction we'll say is 4, the speed is 13, the distance is 165, and it's up 14 feet. So 173.8. So let's type in 4.5. 177.4. I mean, you can do this. You can do this. In your head. You don't have to use a calculator like I am. I'm just trying to get quite precise here. So let's do 4 again. So 173 plus 173.8. So it's about 176, 175.6. And all we're doing is using it in between like we discussed earlier in the video. I was hoping we'd get one that was somewhat in between, just so we could demonstrate how to do it. It's not hard, obviously. This hole plays a little funny, plays a little long sometimes. It's actually kind of a tricky distance to get with this ball. But we'll try it there. Meters. Quite laggy, but we finally get a ding, and we'll see where we end up here. Again, we didn't play it long, but the hole does play a little bit on the long side. So, had we accounted for that, it would have been just a bit perfect. And that's something you're going to have to do on your own, is figure out which holes play which way. But even this wouldn't be too bad. I'd be happy with 8 feet here. But usually I add 2 to 3 yards on this hole. But anyway, that's how it works. And yeah. We'll do one more hole. What the hell is it? Obviously, you don't have to watch the whole video. So I'd say three shots, and the distance has been good on all 3, I would say. It's just the in-betweens are a bit of a pain to do if you're not used to doing them. But so here, let's have a look. We got a tailwind this time, so I'll just delete this part. So what is that? That is, I would say that's like 10.5. So it's between 10 and 11 at 13. Distance of 154. This one also plays a little long. So it says to play at 155. I'm going to play it a bit 157 or so. Played a lot of wind, so that click might not actually be bad. And that's pretty good. So you can see the distance-wise, it works out pretty nice. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share. I don't have anything else to show. I was actually, speaking of like, this hole plays long, that one plays short, this one plays long. I was going to include basically a little thing somewhere here where all you do is you type in, say, a course code, like say you're playing Congressional. You just type in CONG, and then under that you type in what hole you're on. Just type in 1 or 2 or whatever. Say you're on hole 4, type in 4. It would actually come up off to the side saying hole plays 3 yards long. So you wouldn't even have to know how long the hole played, but I thought that was just takes too much of the fun out of the game to try and figure that stuff out yourself, I guess. So Anyway, that's all I got. Feedback if you don't like the calculator, if it doesn't work for you. Yeah, I guess you can yell at me if you want. All right, cool.